Right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the GoldFish Report. I'm your host, Louisa. This is our weekly POTUS report with the one and only FETZ. How are you, Jim?
Well, I just got off of 45-minute international news running commentary about Mike Pompeo's speech to the Heritage Foundation imposing an absurd list of demands upon Iran. I was being featured with Jim Dean of Veterans Today on Press TV, which is an Iranian international news outlet, one of the most reliable, along with Sputnik News and RT, you can find in the world today.
Well, I can't wait to hear about it, Jim. And today I'm not in my usual location, so I'm not actually going to be able to show the viewers the actual posts that I'm referring to. But I am going to go down and give a little bit of a Q summary today. There's big stuff going on. Last week we saw Q change his trip code, which I announced on 2 previous reports. This was a trick, by the way, for the deep state. So they were kind of, it's a game, folks. That's what's going on here. It's a game. And so what happened was he got the deep state to play their hand early because pain is coming. As the recent Q post has indicated, pain is coming. And I presume that means to the deep state. So what we have is that he changed his trip code and he said that the password had been compromised and there was a reason for it. And so it was all on purpose. It was totally deliberate, in my opinion. What we have is they had then this school shooting supposedly in Santa Fe, which of course was published 2 days earlier in Yahoo, in the Yahoo News. So, Jim, it's just more of the same. It's more of the same. They're very predictable, at least we know, there's people out there that are always going to catch these things that are published in advance. But what's going on here is that we have Stephen Halper, who is the spy. I mean, he's the informant for the dossier. We have Trump, POTUS, who had tweeted that he was requesting that the DOJ and FBI hand over the docs related to this. And it's called Operation Crossfire Hurricane. This was the plant. They have the Russian espionage, the traps. They were setting traps in the Trump campaign. And the FBI CIA asset was the professor from the University of, University of, where? Oh, Cambridge. Was it Cambridge?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Cambridge. Right. He's undercover and he's working for the FBI and the MI6, no doubt. And he's bringing people together so they can later be claimed to be in covert relationships.
Yeah, but you know what? There's also more Q posts and there's other anons that are posting pictures of Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama in the UK. There's photos of Lisa Page and Strazek in the UK. Jim, so is MI5 and MI6 involved? There's also posts of the most recent Q post is of this hotel called the Corinthina Hotel in the UK, in Great Britain, which is known for its spy tunnels underground and has been used for all kinds of spy networking. So these are pictures that are shown. There's also a big, they also posted a picture of the big Ferris wheel in London at night.
The London Eye, it's called.
Yeah, the London Eye, which is lit up in blue, and with the stem holding it, it's shaped like a Q. So there's interesting things.
It's a Q. Oh, I love it.
Q, yeah.
Very funny.
Very interesting. But there's also connections with Amazon to UK. Let me tell you, there's such treason and sedition involved in what has happened with the last administration that I think it would make most people's hair stand on end. And of course, there's another post. There's many of them, and I'm not going to go into all the details because I can't share it anyway. But there's also another post showing the inauguration from behind the president, and the crowds were huge. But we all recall what the mainstream media published, that they were very, sparse.
Well, the Park Service kept the crowd back from the mall until they could take photographs that would give a misleading impression. Later, when the inauguration is actually taking place, you can see it's packed, it's jam-packed. So this is just one of many dirty tricks that the mainstream and the Democratic Party has been perpetrating out of Hillary's discontent over losing an election she was never entitled to win.
Exactly. And so the picture is really indicating that we're all Q, which is really kind of the whole Q team, so to speak. And that's why I wanted to publish that.
I just so hope all this Q stuff turns out to be correct, Louisa. I devoutly want that to be the case.
You know what, Jim, since you happened to mention that, I really don't have the glasses that I wanted to, but I did promise you to wear some Q glasses.
These are rose colored.
These are my patriotic. There's some red in there. But these are, wait, let me finish I'm going to finish my Q report.
I love it, I love it, I love it.
My patriot glasses. Can anybody see that?
They're not rose colored, but they might as well be.
Well, you know what, Jim? I can fix that too. Here, I got both of them. There's some red on that, but here I've got these pink rose-colored glasses too. So I know I did it just for you, Jim. Just for you. But honestly, I'm going to go back to my Patriot glasses because I think these are the ones that are more Q appropriate.
They're perfect.
So what's going on here too is we'll see what happens. He's requested that these documents be handed over. And Q also, actually the president said he can use his pen to, get what he needs if they're not going to cooperate. I mean, really, the end of the road is here. Can't they just make this easy for everybody? It's over. But also what's going on, so this attack, it's all related, the timing of this is all related, and when they know bad news is coming out, because we know this Inspector General report is going to be a big boom. It's going to be a big bombshell. So what are they trying to do? They're trying to create a distraction in advance so that that's how they operate. When they know bad news is coming, there's another false flag or there's some kind of something going on in the media to distract people's attention away from the bad news that's imminent. We also have, I'm going to be going to a few different topics. Q had warned us something bad was about to happen, and so we knew bad news was going to break. And of course, there we go. And they're also saying that, this is very strange, that a machine gun, I don't know if you heard this report too, there was a box of ammo that dropped from a military helicopter into the elementary school classroom ceiling. It wasn't, there were no kids in there because it was like at 3:45 p.m.
Which school?
This is in El Paso, Texas. This is in an elementary, this is the elementary school, Parkland Elementary School.
Parkland.
Yeah, and if you notice, all these Parklands, we have the Parkland High School shooting, Parkland Memorial Hospital, where JFK was taken supposedly after his assassination, Parkland Middle School in Maryland, where 25 school buses were burned. We have the Parkland Middle School students where they were shot as they were walking out. So they're basically, telling us what they're doing, and they're reusing these names. And if Parkland, which is the place where children play, they play in a park, the land of the park. So they're really trying to hit psychologically, as you mentioned before, over and over and over again.
Yeah, subconsciously drawing on all that background, which is relatively horrific, in terms of the common understanding.
Exactly. So this is what happened. We're going to have to, of course, we all know about Sandy Hook, and there are other locations in the country with the name Sandy Hook. So I would or closely related to that. So what I would do is I would kind of put I would just be vigilant. If you live near another Sandy Hook in some other area, I would be vigilant because there's a pattern. Jim, this cannot be a coincidence. This is, I mean, who's pointing this out to say, how could this happen that all these events are happening at a school called Parkland?
That's good. That's good, Louisa.
Kind of like they want to be caught. It's like they want to be caught. And we need the FBI and the DOJ to do their damn jobs.
I think it's a form of arrogance, They can do it, they can get away with it, and rub your nose in it if you even pay attention and notice.
Yeah, well, what happened was the deep state played their hand early. And, Q called them out on this. And they have, obviously, their own people watching the boards, obviously. They're going to keep an eye on everybody, on us, on whoever's doing reporting on this information. But what's interesting is that Q always seems to know in advance that something's going to happen. He always seems to know, and I just wonder. There's a theory out there that there are some advanced, I would say, advanced civilization type assistance that President Trump is getting, or that is involved with Q.
Could Q be Steve Pachenik?
I don't think. I mean, I would. That doesn't resonate with me.
All right.
I don't know if it's possible, Jim, but I don't think so. I think Q is.
Well, you've spent overwhelmingly more time on Q than have I. I'm just fascinated by the whole thing.
Well, I think Q is more of a position. I think there's other people who use Q who participate in the Q role. I think it's more like a role. But what I'm trying to say is there was definitely some suddenly humanity suddenly was thrusted into the Industrial Revolution, and we suddenly received this technology that where did the A bomb come from? Where did transistors come from? Where did fiber optics come from? Where did suddenly we had this huge shift in technology, this great jump, this leap in technology. And there is some speculation, and I have discussed this in doing my research. I've come across this consulting with people, that it's possible that, is it possible that Q is using looking glass technology, where he's actually able to look and see in the timeline what is most imminent and is able to play his cards accordingly. I think right now the deep state, and they probably both have it, but I think the deep state is running out of moves, and they're getting sloppy. They're throwing these false flags together much quicker. We're going to talk about it. I'll wait until we talk about Santa Fe before I go into that more. I also wanted to just mention that I'll wait until we talk about Syria. I know we're going to talk about Syria, Jim. But while I've got my Q glasses on, I'm going to stick to Q for right now.
Sure. Sure.
Yeah. So we know that this IG report's coming out, and I think, folks, this is time to start getting prepared, because what I believe it's going to indicate is it's going to show the amount of collusion between our own administration and then the collusion with foreign agents, including specifically the UK. This is bad news, and also it's going to, I hope it shows the transfer of funds. Basically, what was happening with Iran was it was hush money. Everybody was paying, or at least the US was paying Iran. It was hush money. And the reason why the UK is trying to hold these meetings now is they're trying to make up for the loss of income that we're not paying any longer. I'm just saying this is a...
I think I still don't have a complete handle on these payments, but I certainly appear to have been off base in contesting the idea that there would have been these payoffs. I mean,
Well, Q's talking about these huge amounts of transfers. There were, several airplane loads full of cash transferred. Where did it go?
Who's paying who? These are the Iranians paying Europeans to support the...
No, this is the U.S. Barack Obama sent the money. Barack Obama sent it to Iran to keep Iran quiet, to keep them, I think, from acquiring nuclear weapons, or to keep them hushed about having nuclear weapons. I don't know. I'm just saying that
they don't appear to have ever had nuclear weapons. So I believe that in response to the announcements from Dick Cheney and Condoleezza Rice and so forth that Saddam had nuclear weapons, and Iran began a program that it discontinued in 2003 when Saddam was taken out, which was only reasonable given they'd been in an 8-year protracted war from 1980 to 88, where Iraq attacked Iran, and both sides lost about 1 million. I mean, Louisa, it would have been irresponsible if you had the highest ranking officials of the U.S. declaring that Saddam had nukes for Iran not to take steps to prepare itself, which it abandoned, though, however, already in 2003, where our own intel agencies confirmed they weren't pursuing nukes in 2007, even the Mossad came aboard in 2012.
Well, there's so much more going on. Q is also talking about the, always following the Jesuit, the Pope is going to have a bad month in the month of May. And what has happened? We have almost all of his Chilean bishops resigned over sex abuse scandals. So this is what Q knew was coming and was warning us about. It's time to clean house. And who's the guardian of the Pope? Well, we know about the Black Pope, who is the Jesuit Superior General, that is the Knights of Malta. This is who really controls the Rothschilds. And basically the Jesuits have always controlled both sides of the political parties. They controlled the banks and they controlled. So folks, we're really starting to see our world very differently. What Q is doing in general is showing us that he's pulling the curtain away and showing us really controlling the wizard, this big wizard, this big supposed, this religion, this God you should be fearful of, this punishing God, this God, and that it's this God or that God or this God. These were all like ascended masters here. They never came here to start religions. They were, this is where this is going. This is my opinion and my read on it. That the religions, in fact, many of them started out with good principles, but of course was hijacked. And we know that Constantine started the Catholic religion, and it wasn't, Jesus didn't come here to start a religion. So what Q is trying to show us is that how we construct and how we think of our world has really been scripted for us, and we really need to take a step back. And once Q is done exposing all of this, and he's trying to do this a little bit at a time, so it doesn't overwhelm people, because how do you basically, how do you do this? How do you disclose all of this to people without them revolting, without them, without them going into complete chaos and anarchy? And so this is what the whole Q movement's about. It is to wake people up. It's to help people little by little. At some point, it's all going to come out in the mainstream media. Whether it's, 60-40, 80-20, Q has made posts regarding this percentage in the past. It's hard to say. It's hard to say how people, and I think little bit at a time, the breadcrumbs are coming out as also a litmus test to see how people are going to respond, how people are going to react. The problem is if it's not reported, some of it's getting into the mainstream media because they have to report on something. They just keep making up news in the Mockingbird media. But, sometimes they have to start reporting on this. We know that Tucker Carlson, we know that that Sean Hannity is doing good reporting and trying to bring some of these issues. We have also Roseanne Barr now, who is tweeting and starting to, she's, I think, on the Q wagon. And I think you're going to see Roseanne Barr being a little bit more influential, because they really wanted, they never thought Hillary Clinton would lose. And they really thought everybody would just be sheep, and they refer to us begrudgingly, and they have complete contempt for humanity. They refer to us as sheep and cattle. So, and sadly, we were socially engineered this way, and we all fell for it. But now it's time for everybody to wake up and see,
Reading in Roseanne, they've already announced that her show for next season won't be as political and Trumpy as it's been here in the past, which that's too bad, because that was the big draw, I suspect, why it was such a hit.
Well, this is the age of censorship, Jim. How can we be surprised? They deleted the GoldFish Report original GoldFish Report YouTube
you got
channel.
the endless Trump bashing, Saturday Night Live being an exemplar. It's nice to have an occasional dissenting voice, for crying out loud, to make you think about who's got it right.
So I think what I'm going to do is just end on, so we can continue with the latest news, end on the idea that we have to keep in mind that there was collusion with foreign agents involved in this, and this is going to be huge. This is why there's going to be military tribunals, and there's going to be very serious consequences. I don't think any of them really want to be around to watch and to be, I want that perp walk as much as everybody else does, and I would like to see that. But also keep in mind really who's behind all of it, and it really does lead to the Vatican. All roads lead to Rome. And it will show with the Vatican. Of course, the Pope is also expected to resign. What will happen? Who will take over? See, the UN works for the Pope. The UN works for the Vatican. The UN was supposed to be the unifying, the New World Order mechanism to usher in the New World Order. And they're using Tavistock Institute. They're using Council on Foreign Relations. They're using All the institutions that and organizations that we think are benefiting us or there to help serve us are not. They're there to help herd us into an agenda that it was unthinkable for humans. And you're right, Jim, I can't verify anything that, I can't independently verify anything that Q posts, but I can only hope that Q is, that there's some sort of...
well, you just look for a pattern, Louisa, that seems to be the fulfillment of what he's been sketching, and it may come to pass. I mean, listen, I'm open-minded about it, believe me, and I want it to be the case.
Right, because as I said in our last report, I think it's very clear that the alternative is not anything that humans want for each other. They did have a depopulation agenda going. They're still planning that. They're doing it through GMO foods, through chemtrails. Now we have an official diagnosis of chemtrail lung. Look, folks, if you don't think, you really need, and I'm not talking to our usual viewers, I'm always thinking about the new person that just joins us and really doesn't know or hasn't put it all together yet, because those are the people who we need waking up right now. So I hope everybody out there spreads this and shares it far and wide. And please subscribe to our new BitChute channel so that we can keep all of our viewers. We had over 12,000 viewers and lost them all when YouTube did the unthinkable and deleted our channel, which affects anybody's income. You don't do that. That's antitrust. You can't do that when there's a reliable expectation that these people are going to be relying on this for business. This is the spirit that is not in the spirit of America, of the entrepreneurial spirit that is present and pervasive in the United States. We don't go around, doing things like this to people.
It's got nothing to do with money, Louise. It's suppressing truth. Too much truth.
Exactly. That's the reason. Exactly. But what I'm saying is that when they do this, the other consequences are that it really destroys financially if you monetize your channel and you rely on...
Of course, and they don't mind. That's the kind of collateral damage they like.
And let's not forget, the last thing I want to say is let's not forget about the YouTube shooting and why it happened, okay? And how it was brushed under the carpet. Never forget about the YouTube shooter. And by the way, her videos and her views are going up, skyrocketing. I've been watching. Too bad she's not with us any longer to enjoy the benefits of that now, but that's the case. So Jim, I'm done with my Q, my Patriot Q. I am a patriot and I am on board with Q. And if I
love it, Louisa.
If I come to find that Q is not what they've been representing themselves to be, then I am happy to change my glasses again. But for now, it's all the hope we really have. So go ahead, Jim. Let's keep going.
Well, we'll see, Louisa. Yeah, I think it's fascinating. Well, of course, we got this latest alleged shooting in Texas where there's supposed to be 10 dead and 10 hurt. And it looks as though we have an endless string. Frankly, most of these qualify as Democratic campaign commercials. The March for Our Lives was a Democratic voter registration drive that got billions of free publicity, where they had to permit it 6 months in advance. So if you think about it, Louisa, the march was on the 25th of March. They had to permit it 6 months. You're going back like August, for example, to submit the original letter of intent when you check out what's involved in getting permission to hold an event that's going to close streets in D.C. well in advance, of course, of the shooting on the 14th of February, Valentine's Day, and we'll say more about that. Obviously, the whole thing was planned and rigged in advance. This is because the Russian hacking meme has fallen apart. They needed something. Debbie Wasserman Schultz worried about 11 seats being lost in Florida alone. The trial forthcoming for her IT guys, the Pakistani she allowed to spy on the other members of Congress. And it just stuns me that Congress isn't taking action against Debbie Wasserman Schultz and her IT people. I mean, she was spying on the other members of Congress. It's a disgrace. In any case, there's a lot of reason here to believe this latest event here in Santa Fe was fake. But it's interesting how they're upping their game in certain respects. For example, at Sandy Hook, even at Parkland. Actually, it's also true in Boston. They didn't have a surge of EMTs on the scene. There wasn't a string of ambulances. The rush, for example, at Sandy Hook, the little bodies off to hospitals to be declared dead. They didn't even bring in a medevac helicopter. Well, this time they brought in some medevac helicopters, but Jim Stone was right on top of this. He discovered that this morning shooting had trolls on all forums, not even major forums. I mean, all forums, minutes after the shooting, saying they witnessed it, keep people from saying it wasn't real. They did this to prove they were set. All they did was prove they were set and staged to take action the moment the shooting was published, which means it either never happened or was government sponsored. He found on forums it had less than 150 users within the first few comments on threads saying they were there. I mean, it's just ridiculous. Not only that, but he found there was a Facebook page, an account for this guy who's supposed to be the shooter. And he's got this trench coat, and look, he's got Nazi paraphernalia. That little red star on the right collar, that's for Antifa, Louisa. And of course, we know in Charlottesville that George Soros bust in Antifa and Black Lives Matter to have a confrontation with the protesters who had permits, but where the mayor of Charlottesville directed the Charlottesville police to stand down so the National Guard, under the direction of the government, could channel them into a violent confrontation. I just did a new blog on Charlottesville, by the way, where the New York Times is promoting phony baloney, fake news. Just go to jamesfetzer.blogspot.com and you'll find a rather mind-numbing expose on the New York Times complicity in giving us fake information. Here we even found one of the directors, okay? Here you got this woman, and it's the same woman in both cases who's directing the students. Notice they don't seem panicked. Notice in the bus window, there's students holding their bottled water. That turns out to be ubiquitous for these training events, these stage drills. The students love the bottled water. They clutch their bottles of bottled water. So here you got one of the directors right on the scene. This is reminiscent of Las Vegas, Louisa. We looked at 33 videos from Las Vegas, and you heard lots of sounds of shooting, but no one actually being shot. That's because they used a pre-recorded soundtrack that had the sound of shots, even machine guns, with special visual effects. So in the middle of the Mandalay Bay, they had flashing lights to simulate a machine gun. Fire up 3 light bursts to simulate modern American military weapons, which fire in 3-shot salvos. We even have a video of a guy in the crowd turning to fire on the crowd. You can see the light from his muzzle, but no impact of bullets because he was firing blanks. Well, get this. We had one turned up even at Las Vegas where the director had to come out in front of the camera to have her crisis actors redo the scene. Louisa, it's that bad. So, you know, we're exposing these things right and left, but the mainstream media still continues to persist in claiming they're legit. I had a very good guy suggest to me they'd messed with the school schedule, that most schools start around 7:55, but they seem to have had the first period here at 7:10. So actually they had the event taking place before school began. So there would be fewer students around to be participants. Listen to this now from what happened in Parkland.
They have 4 hours.
It's not very loud, Tim.
Raw footage from the drone helicopter. It does not show a single person who had a gunshot wound being carried out. It does show empty gurneys being loaded in as rescues. It does show individuals who have absolutely no sign of injury with any medical equipment whatsoever. It shows that. It shows police officers riding around on golf carts with duffel bags the right size for carrying rescue dummies in. It does show that. It doesn't show 3,500 students. There's probably only about 3 to 4 dozen students that were shown during the rescue at a school with 3,500 people. This is an empty stretcher that they've just put under a tent. He's smiling. He's smiling.
I see blood.
I've watched the entire 4 hours of this video over a period of days. The news media has reported to you that there are 3,500 students that attend this high school. I have not seen more than 60 students in the entire 3 hours and 50 minutes of footage. I don't know where all those kids are.
Here's the deal. It turns out on the 14th, she's scrolling down there, they had early release day on the 14th of February. They let the students out at 1 o'clock at Parkland so that there were no students there. They let them go, Louisa. Yeah. That's why they had only a small number of students. Why I've been reporting for some time how they should have had hundreds of student videos. I mean, every student has a cell phone. They should have been taking videos. There should be hundreds of them, but they aren't there because the students weren't there because they let them out early so they could conduct their drill around 3 o'clock. So you have David Hogg reporting about 3 o'clock, even speculating on the identity of the shooter, which won't be determined for another 25 or 30 minutes. But it's all just the actors, the student actors that stayed behind to participate as sane progressive, and she's done brilliant work, not only on Parkland, but on Las Vegas. I really like what she does.
Yeah, no, I like the point she made. I'm hearing an echo, though.
Yeah, we got some fuzzy stuff.
Yeah, we have some stuff going on here. I'm not quite sure how well that video was going to come out, but if you wanted to see it again, watch our last POTUS report. Again, you can access those only through, actually not true. If you want to look on YouTube, you can access them only through our website at thegoldfishreport.com. But they are on BitChute. They are not censored on BitChute, so you can access them on BitChute.
And I know you had a drill at your own daughter's school today, Louisa. Tell us about it.
Yeah, I was a little bit concerned about. I was quite concerned about that, in fact, and I want to warn people that you have to, when they announce that they're going to do these things, they kind of snuck it in when the beginning of orientation of school, and they start going down what their plans are for the year, and we're going to do this drill and that drill and then an active shooter drill. And it's like, people, I'm like, what is this, Gaza? What did we turn into Gaza? Why do we need to have an active shooter drill? First of all, let me just say this. There was some kind of drill that went off, and I did get texted about this. They had the children put their hands on their head and walk into the cafeteria. I don't know all the details yet, but I will be finding out. And I, do hope that that's it, and it's over and done with. I'm waiting to see if they're going to try to pull something in the news. I don't know. All I know is that it's very disconcerting that we should be having active shooter drills in our school when we know there's people being paid full time to plan these in every single aspect of these drills. Because let me tell you why they're doing it, folks. There is nothing more precious to us than our children. Why aren't these active shooter drills happening anywhere else? Why are they only happening in schools? Because your kids and my kids go there, and they want to push a gun control agenda. So what will motivate us? They're still trying to remote control us, folks. They're still trying to control us through these drills and their actions. There's people planning this. You talked about this in your Sandy Hook work, Jim, that there was a FEMA drill manual.
Yeah, sure. We got the manual.
You got the manual. I mean, so folks,
yeah.
Here. It's like we have to stop allowing, and because it's a public school, taking government money, then the government, this was the whole problem with, policy, creating policy. When I was studying policy in graduate school, it was like, policy making was like a marble cake. It was kind of like this, where, maybe the local and the state interacted a little bit, and then there was also the state and then the federal government. But it became more like a picket fence, where as soon as, if you want to get funding for, to pave your roads, then you have to lower your drinking limit. You have to, or raise your drinking limit, your legal drinking limit, something like that. So what happens is you can't just be given, the state can't just receive federal dollars. If the state wants to receive federal dollars, it's with a condition. And then the state is forced to comply with whatever the federal government wants. This is such big government. This is not the way government's supposed to work. The states are supposed to be able to make those decisions. The federal government doesn't have to. It is too much. Jim, the only comment I want to make is this, that everybody got fed up with politics. Everybody got sick of the corruption, and everyone turned their head. And while they did that, because, and I understand, I did it too. You know, I felt the sense of hopelessness because how are you going to change it? And it was too formidable for me to do anything about. So the problem was people became apathetic about it. They became indifferent about politics. But what was happening was the politicians not only realized that they were getting away with what their hand dipping and the bribes that they were taking, but they realized that they could even take bribes from foreign governments and foreign entities and foreign agents to continue to steer that because they knew nobody was looking. How sad is that, Jim? They knew nobody was checking in on them. And
no one
was watching the store.
You got it right. So here we have what's going on. This is Common Dreams, a liberal website. Call it like it is. After Texas school shooting, progressives say refusal to take on NRA leading to slaughter after slaughter. But it's got nothing to do with the NRA. We should all be outraged by the lack of action from too many lawmakers who do nothing to stop this school shooting crisis, says Shannon Watts. Moms demand action. This is all part of the Democratic playbook to make the midterm elections about gun control. Hillary Clinton, Santa Fe school shooting should inspire soul searching and gun control. But the fact of the matter is it isn't an issue of gun control at all. In fact, you know, we've been played so many times. You were telling me that there's a memorial to Noah Posner in New Jersey. Noah Posner was made up of photographs of the fellow Michael Wagner, who was supposed to be his older stepbrother. Here it is. Michael Posner, Noah Posner and Michael Wagner are one and the same person. This is why at Sandy Hook, Wayne Carver, the medical examiner, didn't allow the parents to go into the classroom to see the bodies, but identified them on photographs. There weren't any bodies. They only existed as photographs, Louisa. It's embarrassing. And here we have from Parkland. These are a couple of frames from a 52-second video we do have, where you have what appears to be a shooting having taken place in the classroom, and yet one of the students is worried about her bottled water. Another is with her iPod. A kid is pulling his putts. You have what appears to be a body until you look closer. Right. And it's a training dummy. It has no arms. It has no head. It's on fake blood. And Louisa, you have what appear to be police going inside and out, but it turns out Parkland gave up their police force in 2004. So they even got actors dressed in police uniforms to perpetrate the fraud. Look at this, how USA promotes it. They're saying here's a possible modification of an AR-15 putting on a chainsaw bayonet. I mean, it's just absurd. Why couldn't USA Today write about the multiple already illegal acts committed during this shooting with less lethal weapons? The shooter committed murder. This is if you take it for real. The shooter committed murder, which is illegal. At 17, the shooter was not allowed to purchase the guns and stole them from his father, which is illegal. The shooter carried guns and ammo at the school, which is illegal. The shooter was not eligible for a license to carry concealed carry in Texas and hid his guns, which is illegal. The shooter deployed inoperable explosive devices, which is illegal. We already got the laws on the books, but the fact is the whole damn thing was just staged. And in fact, when you look at the situation relating guns to homicide, it's just the opposite of what the left-wingers would have you believe, Louisa. Right. They maintain the greater the gun ownership, the greater the number of homicides, but it's just the opposite. It turns out gun ownership worldwide, look at the areas with the highest gun ownership, the United States and Canada. Top map, bottom map, they have among the lowest homicide rate. Look at Latin America, South America, Brazil. Low gun ownership, high homicide rate. Look at Africa, very low gun ownership, very high homicide rate. In fact, in the UK, where they have banned guns, they're now having knife killings at a rate that they're having more homicides in London than they have in New York City, Louisa. And in fact, if you look on the left, you find there's been a diminution in gun violence since the 1990s. Homicides, for example, have dropped by more than a half from 7.0 per 100,000 to 3.4 in 2014. Likewise, non-fatal violent firearm crowds dropped from 725.3 in 1993 to 174.8 in 2014. That's over a 75% drop, Louisa. And we know what happened in Parkland. It was staged by this Jewish woman TV producer, Dina Katz, where we had the Jewish representative, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, where a Jewish sheriff, he campaigned as a Talmudic Jew. And I got to tell you, Louisa, there are good Jews and there are bad Jews, just as there are good Muslims and bad Muslims, just as there are good Christians and bad Christians. The bad Muslims include the Wahhabis from Saudi Arabia who behead the infidels and turn their women into sex slaves. The bad Jews include the Talmudic Jews who believe in Jewish superiority, and the Jews are as superior to the other human races as the human races generally are superior to the animals, that the other humans to whom they refer collectively as Goyim exist only to serve the Jews, that they can lie, steal, cheat, and even kill them for their own benefit. That's what's going on here. And I tell you, if you look at statements made by a series of Israeli prime ministers, you find it's the bad Jews who are in control now with the Likud party. And get this, you have the Democrats going full tyranny now. A California Democrat was even given a platform in USA Today to publish a shocking editorial calling for the nationwide confiscation of all military-style semi-automatic assault weapons. This is a guy named Swalwell, Representative Eric Swalwell, who is definitely not swell, from California's 15th district, wrote to say also called assault weapons need to be banned, and he wanted to use guns to take them away, to forcibly remove them. Louise, I can't tell you how insane this is. There are 3 different levels of security where guns make a difference. One is personal security and family security. If someone breaks into your home, if you're not armed, you call the police because they are. They may take as long as 20 minutes to show up. It's in the first 5 or 6 that most of the mayhem occurs. Your daughter may have been raped, your wife murdered, you may have been mugged, waiting for the police to show up if you can't protect yourself. There's community security. Deerfield, Illinois, which is a suburb of Chicago, has banned guns or imposing fines of $1,000 a day on anyone who keeps their AR-15. But what if there's a riot in Chicago and it spills over to Deerfield, Illinois? How's a community going to protect itself from the looting and the mayhem? What if a motorcycle gang came to Deerfield and they started looting and raping the women? How could Deerfield protect itself? Think of the example in Northfield, Minnesota, where the citizens were prepared when Jesse James came to rob the bank there, and they took most of them out by defending themselves as a community. And then think of national security, Louisa. These gun grabbers aren't even remotely thinking about the fact that when Emperor Hirohito was contemplating invading the United States, his highest ranking military advisors told him it would be a colossal mistake because there'd be a sniper behind every bush. If the left wing had had their way in that day, we might be all speaking Japanese today. And China has the world's largest standing army of 2,500,000, but the United States has the largest unofficial army of over 100 million armed citizens. We are prepared to resist an invader. So at all 3 levels, they've got their facts wrong. They don't understand the nature of the relationship of weapons to crime, and they're promoting a false agenda for the sake of political expedience because they think it's a winning issue for the Democrats in the midterm election.
Well, let me just add to that, Jim, and you're absolutely right. And it's simply just a gun control. They're being staged. There's going to be more of them, folks. So just be prepared. There was a statistic out, and it wasn't accurate, but I'm going to explain it, stating that there were 22 mass shootings, school-related mass shootings since Trump's been in office. And let me just tell you that that's BS. There weren't mass shootings. There was someone was
Discharging
shot.
a weapon in the vicinity of a school is called a school shooting. You know, just for a gun to go off somewhere near a school. You're absolutely right, Louisa. These are all grossly exaggerated statistics for political reasons.
Jim,
exaggerations.
Yeah, I'm not going to. Not going to sugarcoat it. These are outright lies, and this is deception. This is manipulation of information for a political purpose, as you said. So when you look at what all these different incidents were, one kid was even shot with a BB gun. Now that was considered a mass shooting on this list. So you have to be careful that, you know, they're including anything, like you said, that they can try. You know what they said about, when I took my statistics course, my professor said, the first thing she said to the class was, there's lies, damn lies, and statistics. So, you know, folks, just take it with a grain of salt. You know, it's almost like you can't believe anything the mainstream media says anymore. You really can't. And you have to always know. You have to look at what the source is. If they're claiming there's a statistic, you know, you have to do your own research. You just can't let them spoon feed you anymore, and because they're feeding you lies.
Absolutely right, Louisa. Fascinating developments in the Middle East. Turkey recalls its ambassadors from the U.S. and Israel after more than 50 Palestinians were killed in Gaza. Ireland blasts the terrorist state of Israel, guilty of genocide, withdrawing its U.S. ambassador. This is remarkable leadership coming from the president of Turkey. The U.S. administration is as responsible for the massacre in Gaza as is the Israeli government. Deputy Premier Birker Mozdog said on Monday, the Turks are actually taking the lead here, Louisa. Jerusalem will eventually be fully liberated. U.S. and Israel will ultimately have to leave Jerusalem to its true owners, he said. Injustices and mistakes do not give the U.S. and Israel anything permanent, but they accelerate the inevitable end, the liberation of Palestine. Well said. Israel therefore retaliated by kicking out its council after Ankara, Turkey, expelled its ambassador. Everyone is liking the Israeli brutality in Gaza to the Nazi murder of Jews. I mean, this is really stunning stuff, Louisa.
Yeah, well,
and what Turkey should be taking the lead here is fascinating to me, completely fascinating.
That's interesting, because Turkey's always been an ally of the United States. And I think, though, as again, I'm going to, put my, they're slightly red. My rose-colored glasses on here, as you call it, Jim. I'm putting my Q glasses on, because everything I see, I'm trying to look through the eyes of Q. I'm trying to understand what's going on. And I think what's happening is they're going to save Israel for last. That this is, they're playing, keeping people calm, and they're playing their cards, they're playing their chess game very, very, very cautiously and strategically. But let's face it, Syria, we're done. Syria, Trump announced that we were going to get out of Syria, and we are leaving Syria. It's time to leave Syria. It's a sovereign country now. And from the reports I've read, Syria is completely capable of defending itself completely now. So it's time for these forces to get out of Syria and be done with it, because it's a sovereign country at this point. And I think they're not going to wait any longer. So go ahead, Jim. That's my...
Well, we got some additional fascinating stories. The UN Security Council held an emergency meeting on Israeli violence against the Palestinians. Envoys from China, Sweden, and the Netherlands went out of their way to reiterate their government's position that Jerusalem's status should be left to negotiate. Nikki Haley was completely outrageous here. The United States blocked a UN probe into the Gaza deaths.
I'm not ready to go, though.
The United States vetoed the probe on behalf of Israel. Turkey, meanwhile, is urging the Islamic world to unite against Israel, calling for a summit, very appropriate, of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation. Islamic countries should without fail review their relations with Israel. Premier Islamic world should move with one voice against this massacre. And here we have, of course, as I've reported, Israel expelling their council in Jerusalem, but the U.S. shares response.
Yeah, the video was right behind me. So
here's everyone on Press TV talking about it. Nevertheless, in an affront to Israel and the United States, the United Nations, by way of the General Assembly, is launching a war crimes investigation into the Israeli use of force against the protesters. This is a very welcome development, Louisa, very important that the United Nations circumvented the Security Council, where the U.S. has forever blocked resolutions that were holding Israel to account for even the most atrocious acts. And now the General Assembly is taking initiative.
Well, Jim, again, I'm going to look at it through my Q-colored glasses, and the way I see this is that this is the UN would really show their hand as to that their ultimate goal was to usher in the New World Order under the umbrella UN. I think that they have to take some actions in order to keep their narrative of that they're, to kind of keep their ultimate agenda out from being, in the open, and then too many people catching on, because their secrecy is their power. And the minute everybody sees what's going on, they're done. But yes, I agree, it's still good. I mean, and it may ultimately bring them to their knees and cause them to have to be held accountable. Let's hope so.
Absolutely right. Now we had Mike Pompeo, our new Secretary of State, issuing a list of absurd demands for a nuclear treaty with Iran. This was all a perfectly appropriate nuclear treaty. Iran was conforming to it. All sides agree. He's threatening massive sanctions that are going to cripple Iran, or so they hope. On the other hand, he says there'll be concessions if Iran agrees to make major changes. Listen to this, Louisa. The primary problems that Trump finds with the nuclear agreement is it has a cutoff date. It ends in 2025. He wants it to go on in perpetuity, forever. Second of all, he wants the inspectors to inspect the military facilities, not just the nuclear facilities of Iran. Third, he wants Iran to curtail its nuclear ballistic weapons program. Well, the first is ridiculous because you could renegotiate when the time comes, and the second and third are Israeli demands to give them access to information about Iran should Israel attack Iran. Those are not conditions that any sovereign state would agree to. I believe, in fact, the effect is going to draw the European Union into a closer relationship with Iran. The EU is going to use a blocking statute to protect its firms from U.S. sanctions for operating in Iran. Trump is threatening them. Move followed Washington's decision to withdraw from the Iran nuclear deal, which was clinched 3 years ago between Tehran and the P5+1, China, France, Russia, UK, US, and Germany. But now it's a different P5+1. China, France, Russia, UK, and Germany versus the US here. They're going to be drawn together. Trump is giving Merkel an ultimatum. He's trying to boss these countries around. Drop the Russian gas pipeline or a trade war begins. This is outrageous and disgraceful behavior. It's a very complex project. It's going to be very beneficial for Europe to have Russian gas, and Putin has vowed to stand up to the U.S. government's attempt to block the German pipeline. So what we're having here, Louisa, is these measures by the United States are backfiring. It's going to make the European Union closer to Russia. It's going to make Russia and other sovereign states closer to Iran. The United States is going to be left out and isolated because of these outrageous actions it's taken. And of course, it proves the United States is completely untrustworthy and undeserving of a role of leadership in the world's affairs.
Well, Jim, I'm going to put my Q glasses on again, because the way, if I understand Q, the way I see this is that there's going to be advanced technologies coming out where we're not going to be needing gas. With this pipeline, if Trump's playing this position, then for some reason this pipeline is irrelevant. This is a shot in the dark, I'm saying, but it's through the glasses of Q. It's through the perspective of Q. And if I understand Q correctly, this is where it's going to go, that we're going to have technology where this is not going to be necessary any longer. It may be irrelevant. We'll see.
Well, those are great thoughts, Louisa. Congress is even going to consider now recognition of Israeli sovereignty over the Golan Heights. Now, this is a section of Syria, Louisa, that Israel captured in the claim that it was necessary to its security. But guess what? It turns out the Golan Heights is just loaded with gas and oil. So now the Israelis want to claim it so they can steal a chunk of Syria to benefit Israel. This is their modus operandi. They will use any other nation, any other people for their own benefit. Here we have a senior Russian official suggesting that the U.S., Turkey, Iran, and Hezbollah should withdraw from Syria, that the situation is in good hands. Question becomes, did Putin just ask for Iran's exit from Syria in a meeting with Assad? It may be that that would be a good thing. It's not obvious why Iran ought to remain in Syria if it's in good hands, and the Syrians and the Russians can handle it. What the Americans have to understand is that the Russians have far superior military equipment. They have this underwater drone that carries nuclear warheads capable of causing 300-foot tsunamis. I understand they have these things tracking American ships. This is an underwater nuclear-powered drone capable of destroying enemy naval bases and causing huge tsunamis. They have a hypersonic glider. U.S. intel in panic over Russia getting this invincible weapon by 2020. I'll tell you right now, the Russian equipment is far superior to the American. They have superior torpedoes. They have superior anti-ship missiles. They have superior anti-aircraft missiles, Louisa.
Right.
They could take out all American military forces in the Mediterranean within 15 minutes. I'm telling you, it's that bad.
Okay, and I'm going to put my Q glasses back on, because from Q's point of view, at least what I understand Q's point of view to be, is that this is all a distraction. This is just a distraction because, as you said, they are so far superior to what the U.S. has that it just seems like they're just filling up the airwaves with something to talk about. That's my Q position on that.
You mean it would be idiotic for the U.S. to go to war with Russia?
Absolutely.
And Q, therefore, thinks it's all political theater.
Absolutely. Just like your book is titled Political Theater.
In Charlottesville. Yeah, absolutely.
It's all
If anyone wants more of that, I say go to jamesfetzer.blogspot.com, because my article about the New York Times publishing fake news is going to blow you away. Fascinating stuff.
Yeah. Excellent.
So here we have North Korea warns the U.S. as it suspends South Korea for talks over military drills. This is because John Bolton appears to be sabotaging Trump's peace talks with North Korea, suggesting North Korea should follow the Libya model of nuclear disarmament. Well, we know what happened to Muammar Gaddafi. I don't think Kim is interested in being slaughtered, castrated, and having sodomized by a bayonet, as happened with Gaddafi. So here's John Bolton going out of his way to undermine the effect. High-ranking officials of the White House and the Department of State, including Bolton, White House National Security Advisor, are letting loose the assertions of so-called Libya model of nuclear abandonment, complete, verifiable, and irreversible denuclearization, full decommissioning of nuclear weapons, missiles, biochemical weapons, while talking about a formula of abandoning nuclear weapons first and compensating after. This is ridiculous. He very reasonably wants to have a cessation of American militarism in Korea, a cessation of these military drills with South Korea. Bolton's in effect torpedoing the Korean peace deal. I guarantee it's intentional. Bolton's desire to turn North Korea into the next Libya isn't going over so well in Pyongyang, where Kim Jong-un's government has threatened to cancel upcoming talks with the U.S. in part because of the U.S. National Security Advisor's remarks. Bolton drew the ire of the North Korean government by saying the country's nuclear disarmament should follow the Libya model embraced by Muammar Gaddafi, who was later overthrown and killed by U.S.-backed uprising. That history is well understood by Kim's regime. In a blistering statement Wednesday, North Korea's vice foreign minister and a top disarmament negotiator, Kim Kai-gwan, said his government felt repugnance toward Bolton, as well they should. He's either monumentally stupid or he's purposely trying to torpedo, but he's obviously not stupid. So obviously, the diplomacy with North Korea was going very well. Bolton threw a spammer into the works, and it appears to be intentional. I have no doubt about it. But when the United States has become so untrustworthy by violating the Iran deal, Louisa, how could Kim negotiate with the United States and believe it would endure?
Well, first, I think that China, Xi Jinping, has a lot to do with what happened with this peace deal between North and South Korea. And secondly, wasn't there a report that that the U.S. was still conducting drills with South Korea off the coast? Okay, yeah, of course. Now, I don't blame Kim Jong-un or anybody wanting to enter into a peace deal with a hypocrite.
Right.
So what's the deal? I mean, this is what I'm saying. It just seems like it's disingenuous, and someone's trying to. Why on earth, even if they don't announce it, Jim? Why on earth would you conduct drills in the when you're getting ready to create the biggest peace deal on the planet? I mean, come on.
Louisa, you're absolutely right. Now, this will be dear to the heart and Q glass-wearing supporters. Inspector General is going to declare that the FBI and the Department of Justice broke the law in the Clinton email probe. This is the Inspector General for the Department of Justice, who appears to be an upright man of integrity and honesty. Breaking. Inspector General Horowitz has found reasonable grounds for believing there's been a violation of federal criminal law in the FBI DOJ's handling of the Clinton investigation, and has referred his findings of potential criminal misconduct to Hoover for possible criminal prosecution. Clapper, on the other hand, is out there on TV saying spying on Trump was a good thing. In other words, since they've been caught with their pants down, he's going to try to claim this was beneficial to the country. Clapper admitted the FBI may have had someone who was talking to them in the campaign, try to explain away the possibility of FBI informants spying on the campaign as the Bureau is trying to find out what the Russians were trying to do to substantiate themselves in the campaign or influence or leverage it, which is complete nonsense. The Russians had nothing to do with our campaign. That was all made up by Robbie Mook and John Podesta within 24 hours of Hillary's campaign concession speech. Louisa, as the book Shattered reported already in 2017.
Well, it is going to be interesting to see what this Inspector General the report is going to say, and I think that it's going to be painful. I think that's what Q was referring to, and I think that's what they were trying to get out and control the narrative in the news with the false flag to kind of distract people. But the bottom line is, you have a campaign that was spying on another campaign for the purposes of changing the election, and this is huge. This is just huge.
Right. It's much bigger than Watergate.
Absolutely.
The Hillary Clinton campaign and the DNC working with authorities and the Department of Justice and the FBI to sabotage her opponent's campaign.
This is unheard of.
Democracy. It's not the Russians who were interfering in our election. It was the DNC, the Clinton campaign, the Department of Justice, and the FBI, Louisa.
I know, and this is what it's going to show, and that's why they're all scrambling, and that's why Q is posting all these images of showing that that Hillary Rodham Clinton and Barack Hussein Obama were in the UK together, almost at the same time, it may seem, as Lisa Page and Strzok. And so, and we already know from some of the unredacted texts that we know about the Gang of Eight, and they are supposedly cooperating with authorities now in terms of spilling the beans, but it's a mess.
By the way, Louisa, I believe that the interference we're hearing in the background is actually the vacuum cleaning by the staff here at the motel. And I think that when they turn on the vacuum, it interferes with the quality of the sound we have here. We have another Mueller gaffe. The lawyers defending the Russian firm tell the court that the employees who are named by Mueller don't even work for them, that Mueller made it up. This is ridiculous. The Mueller case is falling apart. It's completely ridiculous. They never expected the Russians would show up to defend themselves. They're asking for a speedy trial. They're going to have the right to discovery. The Russian company's attorney responded to the judge, who apparently understood these Russians were all members of Concord Management. He said that's not correct. The individual defendants, it's not even alleged who they are. They're alleged to be associated with something called an organization, which is a made-up thing by the special counsel. They just made it up, and they called it an organization. We're not even allowed to be part of the organization. We're alleged to have funded it, but those people don't work for us. It's not alleged they even do. It's ridiculous. And now, of course, it turns out that the Washington Post, 11 other U.S. firms and internet companies actually hired Russian IT firms. You want to talk about hypocrisy? A dozen major American media and internet outlets hired a Russian company called East Bank Technologies to help with IT and web services. According to a Daily Caller News Foundation investigation, the companies include the Washington Post, Time, Newsweek, Slate, Facebook, AOL, Comcast, and U.S. News and World Report. Maybe Mueller ought to haul them into court too, Louisa, because they're cavorting with the Russians. I mean, this is just embarrassingly bad, and the Mueller case is falling apart. One of the reasons why they've had to resort to the absurdities of these school shootings and the gun control issues, a fabricated, phony issue, to resurrect Democrat prospects for the midterm, Louisa. That's what this is all about.
Right. Keep an eye on that midterm, folks, because this is where they're playing. They're thinking this is their last chance. They need to get a big turnout of Democrats to go in order to keep the seats and keep control. But don't be mistaken and think that it's only Democrats. It's mostly Democrats, but there's many rhinos, Republican in name only, who are part of the deep state as well, and they're also in on the agenda. So let's not forget that this the DNC not only used authorities to spy on the Trump campaign, but also implanted moles and spies within the Trump campaign to try to make it look like the Trump campaign was doing things involved with Russia, was involved, like this whole meeting with Donald Jr. and that supposedly Russian lawyer. All these things were implants. They were spies that were planted in there to try to get the administration to look like they were doing improprieties. Exactly.
But the abuse of the social media to destroy the internet goes on unabated. Facebook has closed 583 million. They claim they're fake accounts in the first 3 months of 2018. They've been taking down massive numbers of my videos. Get this, South Carolina has just passed a law defining any criticism of Israel as anti-Semitic, just as the Israeli Defense Forces killed 60 civilians. This is just stunning stuff. Rachel Blevins publishes a lot of good stuff. South Carolina will become the first state to legally define criticism of Israel as anti-Semitism when a new measure goes into effect on July 1st, targeting public schools and universities. While politicians have tried to pass the measure as a standalone law for 2 years, they finally succeeded temporarily passing it as a proviso slipped into the 2018-19 budget. According to the text of the measure, the definition of anti-Semitism will now include a certain perception of Jews which may be expressed as hatred toward Jews. Rhetorical and physical manifestations of anti-Semitism are directed toward Jewish or non-Jewish individuals and or their property, or Jewish community institutions and religious facilities. A certain perception, that's vague language, that's clearly unconstitutional. Only for aiding or justifying the killing or harming of Jews, making mendacious, dehumanizing, demonizing, or stereotypical allegation about Jews as such, or the power of Jews as a collective, accusing Jews as a people of being responsible for real or imagined wrongdoing committed by a single Jewish person or group, the state of Israel, or even for acts committed by non-Jews, including the state of Israel. So does the slaughter of Palestinians by the state of Israel now qualify as anti-Semitism? Accusing the Jews as a people or Israel as a state of inventing or exaggerating the Holocaust. Louisa, I've documented the Holocaust did not occur, as has been claimed. 6 million Jews were not put to death.
Right.
in gas chambers using Zyklon B.
Right.
That's just mythology. And Amazon has been used as an instrument to suppress discussion, accusing Jewish citizens of being more loyal to Israel or the alleged priorities of Jews worldwide than to the interests of their own nations. But we know, Louisa, when new members of Congress come to Washington, D.C., they're asked to sign a pledge to put the interests of Israel ahead of those of the United States. And those who refuse to do so find them confronted with a well-financed alternative candidate, or even that their district has been redrawn. I mean, this is just outrageous, Louisa. Anti-Semitism is properly defined as rejecting or discounting the worth of a person or their ideas on the basis of their religious orientation or their ethnic lineage. It has nothing to do with the actions of the government of Israel. This is completely outrageous. It's making the Israelis an exception to all the political standards that otherwise obtain throughout the world. That's going to be determined by the long list of ways in which South Carolina will now define anti-Semitism. Individuals will be forced to tip that toe around a legitimate subject, expressing an opinion no longer considered politically correct to now be used legally against them.
I find
well, reflecting the observation of Voltaire. Yeah. To learn who rules over you, simply find out who you are not allowed to criticize. Louisa, this is where we are today in South Carolina.
South Carolina, what are you thinking? Hello, is this where Trey Gowdy's from? What's going on? Really? I know people from South Carolina, and I don't really know that they would really go along with something like this.
That's a good state. Nikki Haley, alas, is also from South Carolina, so obviously you've got good South Carolinians and bad South Carolinians. No. Just as you had good Jews and bad Jews, good Muslims, bad Muslims, good Christians, bad Christians.
This isn't constituents asking for this. These are legislators doing things without the consent and without a foreign government, not of its constituents.
Running the internal affairs of the United States, Louisa.
South Carolina, wake up, South Carolina. Please do not allow these people to put your words in your mouth and think for you. Stand up for yourself and don't let this fascism destroy our country. We have to stand up and fight this, people, or we're going to lose it.
You're right on top of it.
We're going to lose it if we don't fight for it.
Here's the latest absurdity about Las Vegas, Louisa. It turns out now they're claiming he was a right-wing conspiracy theorist. Gee, now we know. He ranted about Waco, Ruby Ridge, FEMA, thought the military was planning to kick down doors and confiscate guns. I wish those concerns weren't well-founded, but Stephen Paddock had nothing to do with them. This is complete nonsense. And get this is an article in the Daily Mail. Look at that photograph, Louisa. That is not even Stephen Paddock. That's his brother. I mean, this is such a incompetent piece. It's a huge, long article in the Daily Mail, and it's ridiculous. It's indefensible. And when we look at the scene from Las Vegas, they're republishing this photograph, which discredits the whole story. Look at the way the blood is dripping down her leg. It should have been going down her leg, not across it.
Yeah, there's not even one.
Dripping on her when she was lying down. She's not dead.
There's not even one drop of vertical.
It was a prop. Listen, the comments to this article were just astounding. Looked like the angry rightist conspiracy theorists don't like real facts. Federal Bureau of Idiots carried out this op. We all know it. So you're claiming a right wing shot up a bunch of Republican voters, considering Jason Aldean was a performer when the shooting took place? Yeah, I'm going to call this BS. Took them this long to come up with this BS. It took the FBI a while to craft that narrative. I don't believe it for a second. Lies and more lies from the non-existent FBI. Lies, lies, and more lies. Where's the investigation of the trajectories of the bullets fired that day? Where are all the shell casings in Stephen Paddock's room? When they released a video going into the room, there was no body there, Louisa. The windows weren't even blown out. And here, this is a repetition. This is just that footage where you got a crisis director coming out in front of the camera to tell a crisis couple to redo their scene in Las Vegas. This is from inside Hooters, where Intel Hub. Not because there were 17 ambulances pulled up in front of Hooters. There was a mini crisis inside. but their footage showed a bunch of bored crisis actors, each with their own sheet, waiting patiently to be carried out on a stretcher as another victim of the Las Vegas shooter. Here is what Mona Alexis Presley discovered. This is the crime map for the Metropolitan Police Department in Las Vegas. For the square mile surrounding the arena where everyone is supposed to have been shot, from 8 p.m. of the night of the first 8 p.m. the following day, nothing there about shooting, other disturbance, assault and battery, burglary, stolen motor vehicle, malicious destruction, recovered motor vehicle. Not a single gunshot report, no shooting whatsoever because it was all fake. And now it turns out Carrie Cassidy of Project Canlock has her second strike to protest because of an interview with me conducted months ago. I mean, Louisa, this is just outrageous beyond belief.
Yeah, well, it's completely, that's what they did to me too. I mean, they went back and arbitrarily just selected a video and just decided to say, okay, well, the thing about this is that you have no opportunity to appeal it. They say you do, but you never hear from them. So basically,
this is done by brainless robots. It's just done electronically by
artificial intelligence. Exactly.
Yeah.
They're programmed to do
the algorithms that they implemented the programs to go after anything about Sandy Hook or Las Vegas or the Boston bombing. It's all outrageous.
Exactly.
Well, Louisa, this is just a finale. I do so many interviews, but this one just seemed to be a very good one. With Crow 777, CRROW 777 radio. Dr. Fetzer is in, but where has America gone? Nice. Check it out. You might like it. I do an awful lot of videos, a lot of interviews, a lot of radio, Louisa.
Right. Jim, you are such a hard worker. If people only did a tenth of what you do to contribute, the news would spread so much faster. So I'm so grateful to do these reports with you, Jim. I truly am. You give such insight. And the thing is the steadfastness about the drills, because there's always new viewers joining us. And it's important to know and to get updates on these false flags, because there's always new viewers tuning in, Jim. So it's important to always keep updates. So it's always important to keep updating our viewers on new information that comes out on these false flags, because there may be some who still don't understand, not that they don't understand what the concept is, but they might not have seen the evidence, or they might not believe it themselves. So we have...
I'm sorry to say I'll be on the air.
We will be continuing this as long as possible, and we certainly hope that that our viewers spread this information far and wide. Please go to our website at goldfishreport.com, and you can follow us on all of our other social
that's 2:50 my time. I'm in Central Time.
Okay, I can hear you, Jim.
Yeah, I know.
Hold on a second.
Let's try it. Let's do it.
Let's continue.
I think we've tied it up, Louisa. Sorry about that.
That's okay, Jim. We are all set. We're back, and we are going to finish up. Jim's got an international news radio interview lined up, so he's got to get going. He's the man of
I'm on the GoldFish Report.
There you go, on the GoldFish Report too. So hey, this is important stuff, folks. And internationally, they want to hear that Americans are at least getting access to this kind of information, because apparently the rest of the world knows what's going on in the United States, except for the Americans themselves, because of the kind of fascist censorship that's not happening in other places. So Jim, as a pleasure, it's my honor. Thank you so much. And in honor of Q too, this is going to be.
I love it, Louisa. I love it.
The Q Patriot. When we're talking about Q, and I'm thinking about thinking in Q's perspective, the glasses go on. So it just sends the message that we're following and we're understanding in the context of the world what's going on from Q. So thank you so much, Jim. I'll see you next week for another. This was our week 70 review, POTUS review. So we'll be back next week with the 71st week since President Trump has taken office. And we'll see all of our viewers this Friday for another edition of Country Roads with Winston Shrout. And until then, folks, have a great week. And who knows what else is going to happen. But we'll be here to report it. So, Jim, thank you so much. Good luck with your national interview, too.
Good luck to us to survive another week. Thanks.
No, exactly. Thanks so much. And folks, this concludes this edition of the GoldFish Report.